The cacophony of 1,000 languages and the kaleidoscope of just as many alien species swirled around Lyra as she stepped onto the bustling spaceport promenade. Her partner Zix, a tall reptilian Zorak, emerged beside her, scales shimmering under the artificial light. Bay 94B, Lyra muttered, glancing down at her holopad. Should be just past the refueling stations in the blue sector. Zix flicked his forked tongue, tasting the air. Refueling stations are that way. Let's go. He pointed a clawed finger toward a distant archway labeled only with an illegible squiggle. As they walked, Lyra couldn't help but marvel at the diversity on display. Insectoids haggling with furred mammals, tentacle blobs oozing past crystalline life forms. Spaceports were always a visual feast. Her appreciation was quickly soured, however, as they reached the blue sector. Or rather, what she assumed was the blue sector, based on the faded azure strip along the wall. The refueling stations were easy enough to spot, with ships of all sizes docked along bubbling tanks of liquid and gas. But the docking bays, those were a mystery. You think a place like this would have clear signs, Lyra grumbled, squinting at a series of symbols that looked more like ancient hieroglyphics than helpful directions. Are those even numbers? Zix cocked his head. I think that squiggle means 90, or maybe kelp. I'm not certain. Frustrated, Lyra stopped a passing dockworker, a stout bite with leathery green skin. Excuse me, can you tell us where Bay 94B is? The dockworker scratched his head with a three-fingered hand. 94B. That's over in the new wing, in it. Past the quantum fuel pumps. Hang a right at the chronofield generator. If it's operational, that is. And you'll see it. Can't miss it. With that, he trundled off, leaving Lyra more perplexed than ever. Quantum fuel pumps. Chronofield generator. What is this? A spaceport or a science experiment gone wrong? Zix shrugged. Shall we ask someone else? But each inquiry only yielded more confusion. Conflicting directions, references to landmarks that may or may not have been metaphors, and an increasing sense that Bay 94B existed more as a legend than a physical place. 2 standard hours later, Lyra's patience had waned to a bare flicker. They stood in front of a dingy portal labeled 9B4, the closest match they'd found so far. This can't be it, Lyra said. We reserved a slot in the new wing, not this rusted scrap heap. Perhaps we should have brought a map, Zix mused. A map of this labyrinth. We'd need a mind link with the architect to make sense of it. No, what we need is... Her words trailed off as her eyes locked onto a data terminal embedded in the wall. Its screen flickered with a rotating schematic of the station, tantalizing in its simplicity. A slow smile spread across Lyra's face. What we need is some human ingenuity. Zix followed her gaze, eyes widening. Lyra, you're not thinking. We can't just hack into the station's systems. Can't we? Lyra strode over to the terminal, fingers already flying across the holokeys. Just watch me. Code scrolled across the screen, security protocols unraveling under Lyra's digital assault. Species across the galaxy may have doubted human programmers, with their pitifully few appendages and lack of telepathic uplinks, but history had proven time and again the folly of such assumptions. With a final triumphant keystroke, the rotating schematic froze, zoomed, and recentered on a highlighted section. There, Lyra said, grinning, Bay 94B, and a nice clear path right to it. Zix shook his head, torn between admiration and exasperation. You never fail to amaze me. But let's hurry, before security triangulates your hack. Lyra gave a mock salute. Aye aye, Captain. Let's go claim our berth. With newfound purpose, they plunged back into the crowd, the glowing map a beacon through the chaos. Perhaps this spaceport wasn't designed for human navigation. But as Lyra had proven, that didn't mean humans couldn't navigate it all the same. Ingenuity in action. Armed with their illicitly acquired map, Lyra and Zix navigated the spaceport with renewed confidence. The glowing schematic guided them past whirring machines of inscrutable purpose and pulsing conduits that hummed with barely contained energy. "I feel like we're in the bowels of some great beast," Zix remarked, ducking under a low-hanging tangle of tubes. "Are you certain this is the right way?" Lyra nodded, eyes locked on the map. "Positive. We should be coming up on the chronofield generator any moment now." As if on cue, the passageway opened up into a cavernous chamber. In the center, a towering column of swirling light rose from floor to ceiling, flickering and flashing in hypnotic patterns. "Whoa," Lyra breathed. "That's a chronofield generator. I thought those were just theoretical." Zix eyed the pulsating column warily. "Theoretical or not, let's not linger. I don't trust anything that manipulates time." They skirted the edge of the chamber, the hairs on Lyra's arms standing up as they passed through the invisible fringes of the chronofield. For a moment, the world seemed to stretch and warp around them, seconds elongating into eons before snapping back into place. Shaking off the temporal vertigo, they hurried onward. The map led them through increasingly narrow and decrepit corridors, the gleaming newness of the main promenade a distant memory. "Are you sure this map is accurate?" Zix asked, his scales snagging on a dangling wire. "This doesn't look like the way to a new wing." Lyra frowned at the schematic. The path was clear, and yet doubt crept in, insidious and nagging. Had her hack been detected? Was the map a decoy, a trap to lure them into the forgotten bowels of the station? She was about to voice her concerns when a scream echoed through the passageway, high and sharp, laced with pain and fear. Lyra and Zix froze, eyes wide. The sound came again, weaker this time, but unmistakable. "Help," a voice called, ragged and desperate. "Please, help me." Zix looked at Lyra, indecision mooring on his reptilian face. The cry for help came from a branching corridor, a black mouth yawning in the opposite direction of their destination. Lyra hesitated only a moment before pocketing the map. "Bay 94B will have to wait. Someone needs us." With Zix close behind, she plunged into the darkened passageway, the cries growing louder with each step. Emergency lighting flickered to life as they advanced, motion sensors tripped by their hasty passage. The corridor terminated in a small chamber, more a maintenance closet than a proper room. Huddled against the far wall was a creature unlike any Lyra had seen before. Amorphous and iridescent, it shivered and pulsed, colors shifting in rapid succession. An auroral, she realized, a rare species known for their chromatic communication. But no healthy auroral ever displayed colors like these. Sickly grays and greens, shot through with jagged spears of red. The universal hues of pain. "Help," the auroral pulsed weakly, a trembling puddle of light. "It hurts, it hurts." Lyra approached slowly, hands held up in the universal gesture of peace. "We're here to help. I'm Lyra, a human medic. Can you show me where you're hurt?" A ripple passed through the auroral's form, and a long gash shimmered into visibility, leaking a viscous silver fluid. Lyra cursed under her breath. Whatever had caused that wound, it ran deep. "Zix, in my pack, there should be a vial of auroral coagulant. Quickly, please." To the auroral, she said, "I'm going to apply a salve to slow the bleeding, all right? This may sting a bit." As Zix rummaged through her pack, Lyra focused on projecting calm and reassurance. Though aurorals communicated through color rather than sound, they were highly sensitive to the emotional auras of other species. The last thing this poor creature needed was more fear. With gentle hands and soothing words, Lyra tended to the wound. Slowly, painstakingly, the flow of silver slowed, then stopped. The angry crimson streaks faded to a duller burgundy. "There," Lyra said, applying a final layer of salve. "That should hold you until we can get you to a proper mid-bay." The auroral pulsed a weak lavender, shot through with streaks of appreciative gold. "Thank you," it shimmered. I thought I would fade away down here." Zix helped the auroral to rise, its form solidifying into a more humanoid shape. "What happened?" he asked. "How did you end up in this place?" The Auroral's colors dimmed, edged in fearful orange. "I was trying to find a shortcut to the other side of the station. Thought I could save time by cutting through the old passages. But I got lost. And then, a shudder passed through its form. Something attacked me. I never saw it coming. Just claws and teeth. And then, pain." Lyra and Zix exchanged a look. Claws and teeth. In a space station. The implications were unsettling. But those were worries for later. For now, they had an Auroral to save. "Don't worry," Lyra said, supporting the Auroral's other side. "We'll get you out of here and to safety. Just lean on us." And so, with their original mission temporarily forgotten, Lyra and Zix began the long trek back to civilization, a living prism of color supported between them, their path lit by the steady glow of human compassion. An unexpected encounter. Progress was slow as Lyra and Zix retraced their steps, the wounded Auroral supported between them. The creature's colors pulsed and shifted with each labored step, gratitude and pain intermingling in equal measure. As they neared the chronofield chamber, the Auroral's form suddenly stiffened, a ripple of alarmed yellow cascading across its surface. "Wait," it pulsed urgently. "Not that way." Lyra paused, confused. "But this is the way we came. It's the only path back to the main promenade." The Auroral's colors swirled pensively, then resolved into a determined blue. "There's another way. A shortcut. I found it while I was lost." Zix frowned, scales glinting in the dim light. "A shortcut. Through this maze. Why didn't you mention this before?" A flicker of embarrassed pink. I wasn't sure you'd want to risk it. It's not exactly conventional." Lyra and Zix exchanged a glance. They'd already strayed far from the conventional path. What was one more detour? "Show us," Lyra said. The Auroral directed them to a narrow side passage, barely wide enough for them to walk single file. The walls here were different, Lyra noticed. Older. The metal was pitted and corroded, and the air smelled of stale recycling and ancient grease. "I think these are the original maintenance tunnels," the Auroral explained, its voice a strained flicker. "From when the station was first built. They run all throughout, like veins in a body." Lyra shuddered. The analogy was apt, but unsettling. She felt like a mote in the bloodstream of some great, aging beast, its innards slowly decaying around her. They walked for what felt like hours, the tunnels twisting and turning in seemingly random patterns. At times, the ceiling dipped so low they had to crawl on hands and knees. At others, it soared into echoing darkness, the beam of Lyra's torch swallowed up in the vast emptiness. Just as Lyra was beginning to wonder if they'd ever see daylight again, the Auroral stopped, its form quivering with exhausted triumph. There, it pulsed, a trembling tendril of light pointing forward. The end of the tunnel. It should open up right next to your docking bay. Lyra squinted. Sure enough, a faint circle of light glimmered in the distance, tantalizing in its promise of escape. But as they drew closer, the light began to flicker and dim. Lyra frowned. What's happening? Is it a power fluctuation? The Auroral's colors drained to a fearful white. No, it whispered. It's not the light. It's the tunnel. It's collapsing. No sooner had the words left its spectral lips than a deep, ominous rumble shook the passageway. Dust and debris rained down from the ceiling, pinging off their suits and skin. Run, Zix shouted, grabbing Lyra's hand. They ran, half dragging the Auroral between them. Behind them, the tunnel was folding in on itself, great sheets of metal peeling away from the walls and crashing to the floor. The roar was deafening, a physical force slamming against Lyra's eardrums. The circle of light ahead wavered and danced, taunting in its nearness. Lyra's lungs burned, her muscles screamed, but still she ran, pouring every ounce of strength into this final desperate sprint. They burst out of the tunnel just as it collapsed entirely, a plume of dust and debris chasing at their heels. Lyra and Zix tumbled to the ground, the auroral landing in a shimmering heap beside them. For a long moment, they simply laid there, chests heaving, hearts pounding. Lyra stared up at the bright, sterile lights of the docking bay, marveling at their steady glow. Never had artificial lighting looked so beautiful. Slowly, painfully, they picked themselves up. The auroral's colors were muted, exhaustion dulling its natural brilliance, but alive. They were all alive. "Thank you." The auroral pulsed, a soft, sincere blue. "You saved my life." Twice. Lyra managed a tired smile. "That's what humans do. We help those in need." Zix nodded, brushing dust from his scales. "And sometimes those in need help us in return. Look." He pointed, and Lyra followed his gaze. There, not 10 meters away, was a gleaming airlock, and emblazoned upon it, in clear, bold lettering, Docking Bay 94B. Against all odds, through danger and detour, they had arrived at their destination, and all because of a chance encounter, a cry for help in the darkness. Lyra laughed, the sound bright and unexpected in the cavernous bay. Perhaps this was what it truly meant to be human, not just to endure, but to connect, to find light in the darkest of places, and to share that light with others. With a heart full of hope and a newfound appreciation for the unexpected, Lyra led her companions towards their waiting ship, ready to face whatever challenges the universe had in store. Arrival and revelation. The airlock door hissed open, revealing the welcome sight of their ship's interior. Lyra and Zix stumbled inside, the auroral floating weakly behind them. The doors slid shut, sealing with a comforting finality. For a moment, they simply stood there, breathing in the familiar recycled air. Lyra had never been so grateful for the bland, sterile atmosphere of a spacecraft. "We made it," Zix said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "We actually made it." Lyra nodded, too exhausted for words. She helped the auroral to a nearby bench, its form settling into the cushions with a flicker of relief. "Rest here," she said softly. "We'll get you to the med bay soon." As if on cue, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "Lyra? Zix? Is that you?" The voice was tinny but unmistakable. "Kix!" Lyra exclaimed. "Yes, it's us. We're back." A static-laced sigh of relief. "Thank the stars. When you didn't show up at the scheduled time, we feared the worst. What happened out there?" Lyra and Zix exchanged a look. Where to even begin? "It's a long story," Zix said finally. "We ran into some complications." "Complications?" Another voice chimed in, deep and resonant. "Captain Solara." Lyra realized with a start. What kind of complications? Lyra took a deep breath. The navigational system in the spaceport was a mess, Captain. Signs were unclear, directions contradictory. We got lost trying to find our bay. Lost? Solara's tone was skeptical. In a modern spaceport? "I know it sounds unlikely," Lyra said, "but it's the truth. The place was a labyrinth." "And that's not all," Zix added. "We found an injured auroral in the maintenance tunnels. It had been attacked by something." A sharp intake of breath over the comm. "An auroral? Attacked. Bring it to the med bay immediately. Kix, prep for a full spectrum analysis." "Aye, Captain." The comm clicked off, and Lyra and Zix were left in silence. Lyra helped the auroral to its feet, or rather, to the approximate location where feet would be on a humanoid form. "You heard the captain. Let's get you fixed up." As they made their way through the ship's corridors, Lyra couldn't help but reflect on the extraordinary sequence of events that had brought them here. A routine docking turned into a test of navigation, a desperate plea for help, a daring escape from a collapsing tunnel. And through it all, the constant push and pull of human nature. The frustration and determination, the compassion and connection. The med bay doors slid open, and they were greeted by a flurry of activity. Kix, the ship's medic, was a blur of blue fur and efficiency, already prepping scanners and salves. "On the table, if you please," he said briskly, gesturing to the examination bed. "Let's see what we're dealing with." As Kix worked, Captain Solara entered, her presence commanding even in the sterile confines of the medbay. She listened intently as Lyra and Zix recounted their tale, her expression shifting from concern to amazement to a deep, contemplative frown. "A hidden network of tunnels," she mused, "and a vicious attack on a peaceful species. This bodes ill." Lyra nodded. "Captain, I know this may sound far-fetched, but I don't think that spaceport was just poorly designed. I think it was intentional. The confusing layout, the contradictory signs, it's like it was meant to make people get lost." Solara's eyes narrowed. "And the attack on our auroral friend here, perhaps that was no chance encounter." A chill ran down Lyra's spine. The implications were unsettling. A sinister purpose behind the chaos, a threat lurking in the very infrastructure of the station. But that was a problem for another day. For now they had a crewmate to heal, and a ship to launch. As the Auroral's colors stabilized under Kix's care, Lyra felt a surge of pride. They had faced the unknown and emerged stronger for it. They had brought light to the darkness and found their way home. And as the ship undocked and set course for the stars, Lyra knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as they always had, with ingenuity, with compassion, with the indomitable human spirit. For that was the essence of humanity, not just to survive, but to thrive, to find connection in the vast emptiness of space, and to never, ever stop exploring the unending horizon. Lyra stood at the observation deck, gazing out at the infinite expanse of space. The stars stretched out before her, countless and eternal, each one a promise of new worlds to explore, new mysteries to unravel. Behind her, the bustle of the ship continued, a comforting hum of activity. Kix was tending to the auroral, coaxing its colors back to their full vibrancy. Zix was in engineering, running diagnostics and making repairs, ensuring their vessel was ready for whatever lay ahead. And Captain Solara was on the bridge, plotting their next course, a determined glint in her eye. But for now, Lyra allowed herself a moment of stillness, a moment to reflect on the extraordinary events of the past few days. She thought back to the spaceport, with its winding corridors and confounding signs, a puzzle designed to baffle and mislead. And yet, they had navigated it. Through ingenuity and perseverance, they had found their way. She thought of the auroral, wounded and frightened in the depths of the maintenance tunnels. A chance encounter, a cry for help in the darkness. And they had answered. Because that was what humans did. They reached out. They connected, even in the most unlikely of circumstances. And she thought of the collapse, the desperate race against time as the very walls crumbled around them. A testament to human resilience, to the unyielding will to survive. But it was more than just survival, Lyra realized. It was about living, about embracing the unknown, facing the challenges head-on, about finding light in the darkness, and carrying that light with them wherever they went. That was the true essence of humanity, not just to endure, but to grow, to learn, to adapt, to reach ever outward. And as she looked out at the stars, Lyra felt a renewed sense of purpose. The spaceport had been just the beginning, a microcosm of the challenges that awaited them in the vast reaches of space. But they would face those challenges as they always had, with quick thinking and determination, with compassion and connection, with the knowledge that, no matter how dark the void, there was always a way forward. A flicker of movement caught Lyra's eye, and she turned to see the auroral gliding towards her, its colors restored to a kaleidoscope of joy and gratitude. "I wanted to thank you again," it said, its voice a gentle ripple, "not just for saving my life, but for showing me the true depths of human kindness." Lyra smiled. "We couldn't have done it without you. Your knowledge of the tunnels, your bravery in the face of danger. You're a part of this crew now." The auroral's colors danced with delight. "I would be honored to join you. to learn more about your species, and to share my own knowledge in turn. Together, I believe we can face any challenge the universe has to offer." Lyra nodded, her heart swelling with hope and determination. Together, that was the key. Human or alien, they were all part of the same cosmic tapestry, all threads in the grand weave of existence. And as the ship sailed onward into the unending horizon, Lyra knew that they were not just exploring the stars. They were discovering themselves, the infinite potential within each of them, waiting to be unleashed. The boundless capacity for wonder, for growth, for connection. This was what it meant to be human, to stand on the precipice of the unknown and leap forward, unafraid, to reach out across the vast expanse and find kin among the stars, to boldly go where no one had gone before, and to light the way for all who would follow. With a smile on her face and a fire in her heart, Lyra turned from the observation deck and strode towards the bridge, ready to face the future, come what may. For she was human, and the universe was waiting.